Hello and happy holidays, and welcome to KSIM Radio. Tonight's episode of Tales of the Stagecoach Inn is Ladies of the Conejo. We have 8 amazing ladies who proudly represent the many women who, from the Rancho days to the Conejo Valley days, not only participated in, but often led the development of our beautiful valley. Listen now as we unwrap the Conejo Valley and the gifts these women gave our community and discover what each one adds to the branches of our historical holiday tree. As we begin tonight, we have but one question. What is a Conejo?
Senor Bill, I can tell you. Would you like to know what a Conejo is? How many know? Okay. A Conejo is a rabbit in Spanish. And we're very fortunate to live in this beautiful valley named after our precious little Conejos. I am Maria del Carmen Estuvida Rodriguez de Lorenzana. Por favor, please call me Maria. I was asked to choose an ornament that best represented my family when we first were living here. And I chose this precious little rabbit. For those of you listening on the radio, I'm holding a sweet little rabbit ornament, a little conejo ornament, and to me it represents the old and the new. I am part of the old. The part of the new is Conejo Valley, part of the old is me, Rancho El Conejo. I was also asked when and why my family came to the Conejo Valley. Actually, the King of Spain gave this land to my father, Jose Ignacio Rodriguez, in 1803. And I want to show you something very special. I finally located it just this morning. And for those again on radio, if you can't, I'm going to describe it to you and also help describe it for the people that are kind of far away. What this is a sketch of Juan Bautista de Anza. And as you can see, he's sitting on his horse. And in the background, you're going to see beautiful oak trees and rolling hills, because this sketch is of him in the Conejo Valley. And my father was a very distinguished soldier in the De Anza expedition that came through this valley in 1776 on the trail we now know as El Camino Real. So in 1803, the King of Spain gave my father and another soldier each half of a 49,000, oh I forgot to take this off, guys, of a 49,000 land grant they named Rancho El Conejo. There were 2 conditions to the land grant. On his half of Rancho El Conejo, my father had to build a structure and stock his land with 200 head of cattle. So my father's adobe became the very first permanent structure on the valley. And he stocked half of his Rancho El Conejo with some of the longhorn cattle bred from part of the 320 heads of cattle he helped bring to California with the De Anza expedition. Cattle raising in El Conejo officially began. I was one of 12 healthy children of my parents. My family has been full of excitement. I was first a Spaniard, ruled by a king of Spain, living in California on a rancho shared by many, many conejos. While I was still a teenager, Mexico won their independence from Spain, so California now belonged to Mexico. The new government honored my father's land grant, and we continued raising cattle. Soon I was married, and my husband and I built our own adobe on this land. Then suddenly, everything changed. In 1848, the treaty signed with Mexico, California became a territory of the United States. Within a few months after the signing, gold was discovered in California. Hundreds of thousands of people flocked to quiet California. So in 1850, less than 2 years after the signing, California became the Rancho El Conejo. We don't have bunny sounds, do we? Here on Rancho El Conejo, everything changed. The road where my father and mother first saw this peaceful, Conejo-filled valley as they passed through with the De Anza expedition still runs through the center of Rancho El Conejo. Until a few years ago, California was a pretty sparse space. We could always welcome the few travelers that came by for water or maybe to spend the night. But now, there were so many people coming on our property, including some strangers looking for anything shiny. They would stop and start digging holes in our land. Many others wanted to buy it, but the title to El Conejo needed to be cleared up in a few United States courts in California. And the land boundaries among all the heirs of both owner families needed to be settled. After 20 years in court, our land claims were resolved. So in 1872, I became the first property owner in the Conejo Valley. I was the last of my family to live here, transitioning from El Conejo to the Conejo Valley. I watched my new neighbor, the Newberries, build a wooden house and start raising sheep. Happily for me, Senor Newberry also became our first postmaster, and he named his post office Newberry Park Post Office, because to him this land was beautiful, and it still and always will be. Something funny happened, at least I thought so. Some travelers that spent the night with the Newberries wrote, "The Newberry house is 1 mile from an old white adobe of an old Mexican owner, the home of ancient possessors." Ancient possessors. Well, this ancient possessor is so happy to have lived long enough to see Senor Hamel build this beautiful Grand Union Hotel, the most beautiful hotel between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, for our first business here. The last question I was asked was what our family's purpose or contribution to the valley was. Well, someone else may have named it Las Vacas, the cows, instead of El Conejo. That's a pretty big, muy grande contribution in my mind. In ending, for me, my little Conejo ornament represents my parents' first visit through Los Conejos, the name of the De Anza expedition gave this land. It represents the 70 years my family spent on Rancho El Conejo. It represents the transition and transformation into vibrant Conejo Valley. And this little Conejo is our common thread of hope in our valley. This little ancient possessor Conejo to this valley, chose this valley to grow and thrive. They are survivors. They have always been here. Gracias. Vayan con Dios.
In 1872, Maria Lorenzana was the first woman from Mexico to own land in the Conejo. We will return with more Ladies of the Conejo after a word from one of our original sponsors. If your business is looking for ways to reach more customers as they traverse the highway, consider placing your next ad on Advertising Rock on our own Conejo grade. Catch the attention of potential patrons as they head up the grade before plummeting downward into Camarillo. Their passengers will thank you for providing a positive distraction from an otherwise fear-inducing ride. For more information on how to place your ad, just stop by Advertising Rock during business hours to see the man that works there. His name is Ernie Johnson. And now we return to more of Karen Peterson and Ladies of the Conejo.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Peterson. To own land was the reason my husband Lars and I and his friends went to Norway. I'm sorry, I have to start over. To own land, the reason my husband Lars and his friends left Norway and came to America. They purchased land in the Rancho El Conejo in 1890, and the following year we married. 5 families living side by side at the northern part of the Conejo Valley became known as the Norwegian colony. With the achievement of owning land in our new country, we Americanized their names. Lars Berge and Karen Gjerde became the Pedersens. We were in a strange country, far away from relatives and friends, but we were all Norwegians who, as a friendly group, helped each other if anything was needed. Shortly before our first Christmas in the valley, a tornado split the corner of the Hansons' little temporary home, causing it to fall to the ground. But God was with us, and we finally got to have our Christmas gathering, which we had planned. Even though the early days were filled with hard work, the first 10 years on the ranch were the happiest of my life. For most of the birds in the colony, I was the midwife. Our husbands used to take their crops to market using the old Butterfield grade into the Santa Rosa Valley and down the Potrero grade. Both ways were treacherous, and after a serious accident, the men set about carving out the roadbed to form the Norwegian grade. It took them 2 years. A disastrous epidemic swept through our colony, and in 1901, I lost my beloved Lars. Eventually, the task of running the ranch became too much for me, and I moved with my 3 sons to Santa Barbara until they were old enough to do the farming. Eventually, my 2 oldest, Rickard and Peder, returned to the Conejo Valley to farm a portion of our property. We were immigrants from Norway, but we became American. Our children spoke Norwegian, and we tried to teach them as best we could until they were old enough to attend school and learn English. For the Conejo Valley Christmas tree, I am placing this parchment. It represents the deed to our land and the many diplomas that California Lutheran College has bestowed to its graduates in the 130 acres of land donated by our son, Rickard. Thank you.
Ladies of the Conejo will be back after this word. Is work backing up on your ranch? Has that leaky faucet out back of your house finally gotten the best of you? Well then, mosey on down to Rob's Hardware at 2974 Thousand Oaks Boulevard to find what you've been looking for. Tools, equipment, and the widest selection of nuts and bolts ranging from the smallest metric screw to the largest hardened bolt. Proprietor Ray Robb and his sons Dennis, Gary, and adorable little Wayne are ready, willing, and able to help you solve almost all of your hardware-related problems. While you're there, be sure to visit the electrical department, said to be the birthplace of the youngest son, Wayne Robb. Now that's dedication to one's business. Rob's Hardware, where their motto is, if they don't make it, we don't have it. Now, let's return to Ladies of the Conejo.
Good afternoon. I'm extremely pleased to participate in this wonderful radio event. My name is Henrietta Steamer Russell. I'm not from this area originally. I was born in Davenport, Iowa. My mother, Abigail, bravely moved my sister and myself out this way to Los Angeles after my father and 2 brothers died in a terrible epidemic. I was only 4 years old when we made the move. My mother modeled strength of character and a love for education for us throughout her lifetime. I graduated from Los Angeles High School in 1901. I met my husband, Joe Russell, at LA High. We were both very active in our senior class. I was the class secretary and Joe was the class treasurer. While I was from a small family in a big city, Joe was from a large family led by early Conejo Valley settlers Andrew and Abigail Russell. The Russells had purchased the Triunfo Ranch in 1881 and lived on what would become the 6,000-acre Russell Ranch straddling the Ventura and Los Angeles County lines. While we were courting, I would take the train from Los Angeles to Simi, where Joe would meet me with the buggy and horse, and we would travel the last 10 miles of the journey from Simi to the family ranch by buggy. The trip was long and not too comfortable, but it was worth it to see Joe again. Both Joe and I were very focused on education, and after high school, Joe went north to the University of California, Berkeley, and I went to college at a campus that would eventually become UCLA. I became a teacher and taught in the San Fernando Valley, and after he completed his studies, Joe moved back to the ranch. Eventually, Joe and his brothers transitioned the property from farming to cattle ranching. We were married on June 24th, 1908, and I joined Joe at the ranch. My city friends felt very badly for me for having to move all the way out to the wilds of the country. Ranch life was indeed hard, all that hand laundry and cooking and churning butter, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. I raised 3 wonderful children out on that ranch and passed down my love of hard work and education to them. For the Christmas tree, I have brought a school bell, much like the one that's hanging in the timber school over here. It represents my love of learning, education, and curiosity. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back with more Ladies of the Conejo after this word from Lupe's restaurant. Are you feeling hungry, my friend? Are you longing for some delicious melt-in-your-mouth homemade Mexican cuisine? Well, then shake your boots on down to Lupe's restaurant for some tantalizing tacos, que bueno quesadillas, beautiful burritos, excellent enchiladas, or the house specialty, chili con carne de Lupe's, cooked all day in an authentic Mexican earthen pot. Martha Zuniger and her family will guide you on a culinary quest through her family's 50 years of Mexican traditional recipes. Lupe's Mexican Restaurant, in the heart of the Conejo Valley on Ventura Boulevard. Lupe's, it's muy delicioso. Return with us now to Ladies of the Conejo.
Welcome. I am Ethel Flora Tague Hayes, eldest daughter of Cecil and Cicely Hague, both who came from prominent families in England. In 1885, my father purchased land in the Conejo Valley of California and a building then known as the Grand Union Hotel. A few years later, my mother became his wife, joined him there, and they lived in the hotel. I was born at the big hotel on December 15th, 1892. We lived there until a new home was built nearby. Now, I had 3 siblings, and together we grew up on the Hague Ranch. My father was among a citizens group that formed the Timber School District, and Timber School was built on 2 acres of our land. While it was being built, our classes were held in our hotel. Next to our ranch was Simon Hayes' ranch. Now, Simon and I were very fond of each other, but he joined the cavalry during World War I. When the war ended, he suddenly appeared as I was raking hay with a team of horses and said, "Ethel, let's get married." Well, I left the hay drying in the fields, put up the horses, and went into the house to take a bath. We drove to the Ventura courthouse and got married. Now, Simon built us a home and a large barn on our land, and we had 2 children, Reba and Alan. On our ranch, we grew grain, hay, and beans, and had plum and apricot trees. We also raised cattle and Palomino and Arabian horses. I raised the first Palomino shown at the Santa Barbara Fair. I loved horses and often rode in Ventura parades. In fact, our family enjoyed having rodeos and barbecues for several hundred people. When my father died, Simon and I purchased what had been the old hotel from my mother, renovated it by removing the balcony and the wide porches so it now resembled a southern mansion, and rented it to several tenants. One was Colonel Ingersoll for his Roebling Military Academy in 1933, allowing the boys to use horses from our stables for riding lessons. Our children have been instructed. I want my gravestone to read, "Born in the Stagecoach Inn." I know they will help to preserve this building and Newbury Park as our legacy. Therefore, I am placing an ornament on the tree which pictures the Stagecoach Inn, so important to the Haigs and the Haigs, as well as our beloved Newbury Park. It's getting late in the day. I need to call my daughter Reba about our Christmas plan.
Mrs. Hayes, it's Kathleen Goebel. Yeah, how can I help you today? Alrighty, I'll grab Reba on the line right now. Unlike Ethel, I was not born in the Conejo Valley, escaping the cold, cold winters in Wisconsin like so many other people. When we first came to California, we actually moved to Santa Barbara. Needing to move to more open spaces for my father's health and the affordability of land, we were eventually drawn down here to the Conejo Valley. However, our early times here were not as peaceful as we had hoped. Instead, that confounded Louis Goebel's lion farm was just below our farm. His lions would interrupt the milking process. We would start milking, and immediately his lions would roar, causing our cow to knock over the bucket. Yeah. After it happened for the third time in 1 week, that was too many times, and I was getting real mad. I just had to know why that man always fed his lions at the same exact time I needed to milk our cow. With my father, I marched down there to give that guy a piece of my mind. Well, when Louis saw me and I saw him, my mouth blew open, and I couldn't get any words out. Louis too took one look at me and his jaw dropped. Well, after we stared at each other for about a minute or so, my dad muttered something and took off. Truly was love at first sight. During our marriage, Louis and I supported our community by supplying furnishings for the Chamber of Commerce and supplying all the water for the area's construction of Highway 101.
Oh man, I'm thirsty.
You're welcome. In addition to that, our land is home to the first senior center in Thousand Oaks. And if that weren't enough, I was the first telephone operator. That's why I brought with me a little ornament with a telephone on it to hang on the tree for the radios. As the owners of Lion Farm, which became Jungle Land, we housed a school bus with a driver for the Conejo School and the first fire truck. We also employed the world's first woman tiger trainer, Mabel Stark. Let me connect her now.
We'll be right back with more of Ethel's phone call to her daughter after a few words from Jungle Land. For an exciting day with exotic wild animals, bring the family to Jungle Land, home of Louis Goebel's African lions. Right here in Thousand Oaks, you can see up close and live lions, tigers, and bears, oh my! Plus elephants, hippos, giraffes, chimpanzees, and more. Many of these animals have appeared in Hollywood movies and TV shows like Tarzan, The Adventures of Robin Hood, and Birth of a Nation. Right here in our own backyard, experience animals from Africa, Asia, and the four corners of the world. Enjoy elephant rides, tortoise rides, ducky boat rides, train rides, safari tram buses, and even a sky tram. But most of all, come see the one and only Mabel Stark, the only female tiger tamer in the world, as she enters the ring with a dozen adult tigers. Will she live to tell the tale? Come see for yourself at Jungle Land.
I am Mabel Stark. Never heard of me before today? Well, don't worry. I even stumped all those folks on What's My Line when I was on the television show a while back. I'm very famous in the circus world, but not so much elsewhere. You see, I hold the unchallenged title as the only female to teach, train, and work with tigers in the ring. You can't see it out there in Radio Land, but I do have my arm tightly bandaged. It's nothing really, just a scratch. And it wasn't Raja's fault. Poor boy was not at his best today, and I noticed too late that he had a sore hind paw and was limping. So of course he was out of sorts. Raja's my favorite. I raised him since he was a little cub, bottle-fed him, and washed his little face like he was my very own baby. And I'll tell you, tiger babies are much nicer about that sort of thing than those kind of babies. Well, you know, I've even been known to walk Raja through the streets of downtown LA. Well, on a leash, of course. That's me, the crazy cat lady. You know, I didn't think I had a chance at a career like this when I was growing up. It was only men working with the big cats in the circus, but I was always drawn to the zoo in my hometown in Kentucky. I loved all the animals, but the tigers were always my favorite. I remember the first time I heard the call of a tiger. I walked over to the enclosure, and this giant face turned and looked right at me. Oh, I fell in love. I knew right then that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I wanted to train cats. But as I said, it was men's work, so I opted for something a little more practical, and I went to school and studied to be a nurse. Well, after graduation, I took a little vacation to Los Angeles. That was 1911. And California was just the best place I'd ever been. The first night I was in LA, I went to the A.G. Barnes Circus. And you know, I met the manager. Well, I shared with him my ambition to be an animal trainer. And would you know it? He hired me right there on the spot. No experience. Well, They didn't take me seriously at first, but I wondered myself. That night, after he hired me, I went back to my hotel. I opened up my suitcase. I took out my nice, clean, starched white nurse's uniform that I'd worked so hard to earn. I put it on, stood in front of the mirror, took it back off, I folded it up and put it away. I knew I'd never wear it again. And you know, I have never regretted trading in that little white cape for this one. They didn't take me very seriously, as I mentioned, and I think it was because they were used to the women working with the horses. I didn't like the horses much, and I couldn't stand the monkeys. And as far as the big cats go, well, the lions, the pumas, the leopards, the cheetahs, boring. They're not that dangerous once you've worked with them for a while. Just give me tigers. Tigers in the ring? Small girl, big cats? The crowd loves it. So do I. At one point, I took off and started working for Ringling Brothers. I was their headlining act with 12 tigers in the ring. But circus life, it's difficult. Lots of traveling. I was very, very happy when I was hired at the Oval Lion Farm in Thousand Oaks, California, which later became Jungleland, and I have been there for many years. I will stay just as long as they'll have me. I work with as many as 16 to 18 tigers in the ring at a time. One of my favorite things to do is wrestle with a single one, usually Raja. I take him down, he takes me down, I put my head in his mouth. Very thrilling stuff. Usually the rest of the 16 tigers are just perched in a pyramid around us. You know, being a trainer is dangerous, but it's never dull. Tigers are like people, you see. No two are alike, and you get to know them and know how to work with the different personalities. But still, things can go wrong. And being injured, well, it's just part of being an animal trainer. I personally have been attacked 75 or 80 times, left for dead 6 times. My worst mauling left me with 238 stitches and in and out of the hospital for 2 years getting muscle repair. There isn't a part of my body that isn't scarred with tiger claws and teeth marks. But I still do it. I love it. It's the love of my life. You know, I made a commitment when I first started that I would do whatever it took to get to the top. Whatever that price might be. And honestly, my wish is to be killed by my animals. Death by tiger. Doesn't sound bad to me. Raja, hold off. You'll get your turn in front of the audience. You know, when I think about the hazards, there's always cause and effect, and it's never the cat's fault. Maybe mine, or someone else, or some distraction. But for instance, one time, the tigers entered the ring and hadn't been fed. Yep, that happened. That guy was fired. Sometimes it's the band is a little too loud. It's distracting for even me, and the cats are going wild. Or maybe there's a raging storm outside. Or maybe, like today, there's a small injury with the cat. Anyway, it's not the cats. And, it hurts, but I'm okay. My number's not up yet. They say that cats have 9 lives. Well, some people think I have more lives than my cats. Say, did you know that I wrote a book once? I called it Hold That Tiger, like the song. See, I was married, well, several times, 5 or 6, I think. But I never had any children. So I figured the best way to pass on all I'd learned in this business and what I learned about life was to write it all down in a book. So that is my gift. That hopefully some women out there will read this book and they'll realize they too can do whatever they want, even if it's never been done before. Well, I see these other people, men and women, in the humdrums of life, pale and gray, sitting at home in their offices, day after day. And I think I am really fortunate to be in my line of work. Picture it. The center door to the ring opens. The band strikes out real loud. I am ready. I crack my whip and I say, let them come. And out they run. Those gorgeous, sleek tigers making their way around the ring, trying to decide, are they going to obey or not obey? There is nothing more thrilling. And a tiger can whip anything but a gun and me. Tigers only love people whose wills are stronger than theirs. Well, I guess I better get this bandage changed and put my ornament on the tree. A tiger, of course. Hey, be sure and come out to Jungle Land and see Raja and I. We're there performing every day.
Oh, the telephone. Mrs. Hayes is waiting. Mrs. Hayes, I am so sorry. I'll get Reba right now. Reba, I'm connecting you to your mother.
Mother, I can't talk to you right now. I'm on a radio show about the ladies of the Conejo. I am Reba Hayes Jeffries, and I grew up right here in the Conejo Valley, surrounded by grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. My mother, Ethel Hayes, was the oldest child of Cecil and Cicely Hayes. My mother and my father, Simon Hayes, owned a ranch near the Stagecoach Inn, and they bought my grandparents' property when my grandfather passed away. Probably none of you have experienced the feeling of owning acreage that has been in your family for 100 years or more. Words cannot express the feelings that I have for my land. Growing up, my brother Alan and I worked hard on the ranch, but there was a lot of fun too. I remember riding my horse in the first community parade that eventually became the Conejo Valley Days. And after attending the original timber school and Oxnard High School, which was the closest school to Newbury Park at that time, I graduated from UC Davis with a certificate in animal husbandry with hopes of becoming a veterinarian. With the Depression going on, I decided to attend business school, and that was a very good decision. My husband, Floyd Jeffries, and I established several businesses in Newbury Park along Newbury Road, which was originally the Hague Farm Ranch. We had the Newbury Park Lumber Company, the Newbury Park Feed Store, 2 gas stations, 2 new car lots, a junkyard, a market, and the strip mall where Cleo's Cafe, the only restaurant in Newbury Park at the time, was located. We wanted a large family, but after the birth of our daughter Susan, we had a lot of difficulty having more babies. So we adopted 6 children. Raising the children on our 5-acre ranch was a continual picnic. I wasn't afraid to speak my mind and became somewhat of a controversial figure. However, if I felt within my heart that something was right, I put everything into it. I was instrumental in establishing the Newbury Park Chamber of Commerce and was the first woman president. I unsuccessfully fought for Newbury Park to be a separate city from Thousand Oaks. And even though I accepted the annexation in 1967, I was never happy about it. It's a shame. The Thousand Oaks personality is overpowering to the extent that Newbury Park is losing its large ranches and freedom. I was very happy when the post office in Newbury Park was moved into a larger building, and it remained in Newbury Park and was still called the Newbury Park Post Office, meaning the name Newbury Park would live forever. And when the Stagecoach Inn, a building that had been in my family for 3 generations, was destined to be torn down for a freeway expansion, My brother Alan and I worked tirelessly to save the building. And then, when it burned down, I donated many items to the museum that was built as a replica to the Stagecoach Inn, including the parlor piano that my grandmother had shipped from England. I'm certainly glad that piano was in my house and not in the Stagecoach Inn when it burned down. So there is something left that my grandparents had. It was a great honor to be named Dona Triunfo by the Historical Society in 1983. Not yet. I brought a mail truck that says Newbury Park Post Office to honor my family and our continued love for this area. Now you can
Women continue to serve our community and were recognized for their contributions by being named Grand Marshal of the Conejo Valley Days and selected as Dona Triunfo by the Conejo Valley Historical Society. We'll meet another of these extraordinary ladies right after this. At this festive time of year, our thoughts turn to the perfect holiday gift for that special someone on your list. For a unique gift at any time of the year, one that harkens back to the unique history of the Conejo Valley, visit our very own Emporium gift shop right here at the Stagecoach Inn. Among the many amazing items for sale is the book Ladies of the Conejo by Miriam Sprankling, upon which today's radio program is largely based. The Stagecoach Inn Emporium, where charming gifts, books, and memorabilia await you year-round. And now, back to our show.
Donna Fargo here, born and adopted by a rather well-to-do family in Chicago back in 1917. Was 2 years old when we moved to California and settled in Beverly Hills. Now, because Father invested in the movie studios, he would visit them frequently to make sure his money was being used wisely. Now, as a little kid, I would tag along. Now, those movie lots made for one hell of a playground for a kid. Now, here began my dream of being a star on Broadway. I studied drama and did some radio work, but it didn't take long for the studios to decide that I couldn't act. They knew I could ride a horse, so they hired me as a stunt woman in more damn westerns than I care to count. Now, my last role was as a stunt woman was in a movie some of you just might have seen, Gone with the Wind. That was me riding in that wagon through the burning streets of Atlanta. Why, I thought I was going to be cooked through and through. And I was the one that tumbled down the stairs as Miss Scarlett O'Hara. Now, the first take was perfect, but that know-it-all director said, "Oh, I want to do this again." Well, this time I hurt my back real damn good, and I said, enough is enough. Now, Father had left me the TEC Pencil Company in the San Fernando Valley. It supplied drafting equipment to the armed forces and the defense industries. I ran it for a while and then sold it in 1950 and formed a television service called Telfex that involved rear screen projection. But the smog was so bad in the valley in the 1950s that my business partner, who had emphysema, and I moved out here to the Conejo Valley with its sparkling clean air and wide open spaces. Wide open. But we found a depressed little village. It had been bypassed by that new state freeway, and every other business along Ventura Boulevard was now vacant. Well, we went into real estate working with the early housing developments. We also formed Farland Enterprises and published a small weekly newspaper. Development was slow until the Metropolitan Water District brought water into the Conejo Valley, and Jan started building his planned Conejo Village. And The Lutheran Church built a college on 130 acres of land that Richard Pedersen had donated up there in the Norwegian colony. Now, upon moving here, I also joined the Community Activities Committee, which raised funds for things like parks. Now, our big event was Honorary Mayor Days, with games, rides, and contests like the Whiskerino contest, looking for the hairiest man in the Conejo. Now, people enjoyed capturing the mayor and putting him in jail. He would have to remain there until someone bailed him out. But in 1964, we became an official city with a real honest-to-goodness mayor. And now people thought it was undignified to do that. So we changed its name to Conejo Valley Days. It was my idea to add the Badgeroo as a fundraiser. Candidates running for Grand Marshal of the Conejo Valley Days Parade sell badges with their pictures on them to raise money for the local nonprofits. Now, you can look for me at the Jan's Mall, where I will always have a few Badgeroos on me to sell. People are now collecting them, so you be sure you come by and get yours. Since I always have a few badges on me, I'll hang one on the tree. This one has my picture on it because I was Grand Marshal in 1970.
This has been the Ladies of the Conejo. Let's meet the 8 of them for one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, Alice Stewart as Maria Lorenzana. Raiden Pedersen as Karen Pedersen. Debbie Berenbaum as Henrietta Stammer Russell. Patty LeBeau as Ethel Hay Hayes. Violet Halib as Kathleen Park Goebel. Jana Goldsworthy as Mabel Stark. Nellie Cusworth as Reba Hayes Jeffries. Stasia Stimrall as Donna Fargo. Ladies of the Conejo is produced by Sherri Kerman and Cynthia Bengston. I'm Bill Ackerman. Good night and happy holidays from KSIM. All right, we're clear, ladies. You can smoke if you want to.